Awesome. All right. Well, that was fantastic about this camera. That thing's not working right anymore. Um, anyway, I'll try to mesh it as we go. Uh, so I was working with one of my buddies this weekend um, over some one of my MD buddies who does functional medicine, and we were kind of going through the different protocols that he was using that I was using, and kind of showing the differences and trying to come up with better protocols. And it was funny because the new protocol we're running that has all the mental work in it, all the NLP stuff in it, we stopped on, we started talking about, and he was like, this is the thing that everybody's missing. He was like, this is the piece. He was like, he's fully functional medicine certified and adult functional medicine. I've got functional medicine, pediatric people I work with a lot. Um, and he was like, this is the thing that we're missing. He was like, we've got all the chemistry. He was like, we got the, the supplementation. We've got the, all the detoxification stuff. We've got the nutrition stuff. He was like, but he's like, the mental piece is the big thing that we're missing. And so we're working on rolling some of the mental work that we're doing into some of the already established functional medicine protocols that he's running. Because we're trying to come together and do more work together with some of my functional medicine buddies. But that's the biggest piece. Like, it's always funny when we sit down and I talk to people who have high physiological training, people, functional medicine docs, neuro guys, neurobiochemical guys. That is the number one thing that we've all been like, oh yeah, 100%, something addressed it all. And here's the funny thing: it's not like like with the chemistry thing. Like, should I take 100 milligrams of CoQ10 or 150? And there's like, well, 100 is better, 150. Like, everybody has their own opinions. The thing is that we all agree that we need some CoQ10. We all agree we need methylated B vitamins. The quantity and the amount of individual folate, methyl tetrahydrofolate, or the methylcobalamin, or whatever it is, whichever B it is, we might argue a little bit about how much we need, but we all agree that we need it. And so you should get some in. The thing is that I have never spoken to any guys I disagree with, right? Like, guys who are like, you should use statins for everything. And I'm like, you're crazy. That's terrible. The research shows, physiology shows it's terrible. But we both agree on the fact that mental piece is a big thing, big part of things that everybody needs to get done. I don't think I've spoken to anyone, healthcare practitioner, trainer, anybody, even though I consider healthcare practitioner trainers more healthcare practitioners than most standard doctors. Everybody agrees. Like, the mental piece is really, really important. Like, I've never met anybody who's like, nah, the mental piece is irrelevant. Like, nobody says that. However, think of it, when you go to your doc, when you go to, we open up the magazines and tell you Muscle Fitness, all these things. Nobody's like, hey, have you guys stopped and checked your mental piece yet? And this isn't for like, oh, I have this major problem that I'm trying to deal with and it's eating me alive inside and I don't know how to deal with it. Yeah, those guys definitely need help. But everybody needs to work in your mind. That's why we keep talking about every single thing that you guys do. Everything. Like, if you show up to the gym every day, you had to make that choice, right? You had to decide to build the commitment and the dedication. You don't have it, you build it. You have to just make that decision. You have to decide, I'm gonna choose to eat right. I'm gonna choose to supplement right. Like, that's all a mental thing. And so the idea that we're not spending giant amounts of time starting off working on the mental piece, I think, is one of the major travesties of what we're doing. Nobody's arguing that the mental piece isn't valuable. Nobody's arguing that we shouldn't all be doing something for a mental piece. What are we doing? Like, that's the thing. And so, people come in like, well, hey, is the NLP thing therapy? Technically, legally, we can't call it that. However, I will tell you that, anything that you go into beforehand and you have a positive outcome on the other side and you feel better, it has to be kind of a form of therapy. So I understand it's confusing, but from a legal aspect, we can't necessarily call it that. But it's one of those things that it's highly beneficial. Now, if you're like, well, I'm not going to get into NLP, but I'm going to do something, great. Go call 7 counselors, therapists, psychologists in your area. Go meet them, spend 1 or 2 sessions with them, and figure out who works best with you, and start working on your mental health. If you guys have to take, a little bit of time in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, and be like, I'm restructuring my day, so I have mental breaks in my day where I can sit and go over gratitudes, where I can sit and decompress, where I can just breathe. Super duper important. Like, the thing that we are not addressing almost at all is the mental piece. And it's always funny because people come in, they're like, well, I don't understand. How, why should we start here? I'm like, okay, well, that you don't have to. You don't have to start with NLP. You don't have to start with, gratitudes. You don't have to start with, going and seeing a therapist. But what are you doing now? Like, what is the thing you do now specifically for your mental health? And I have a lot of guys who are like, I work out. And that's fantastic. Like, I'm not arguing that because the neurology is wildly, it's one of those, we know pretty well that exercise shifts you from a sympathetic, stressed out state to a parasympathetic, resting, digesting state better than anything we know. And with that, we get suppression of the amygdala function. Again, fear, hate, anger, terror, all that crazy stuff. Yeah, 100%. Like, absolutely. We understand why you're pissed off and you're super angry and you go walk around for a minute. Well, you calm down a lot faster. Like, that neurologic function, we understand it. So if you're working out for your mental health, great job. Count that for 100%. Count that as something you're doing. But what else are you doing? Are you reading things that are uplifting? Are you reading things? Are you putting things into your head that are positive and uplifting and beneficial? Or are you constantly being beaten down by media that is negative? Those are some of the things that you've got to really kind of watch out for. How are we taking care of our mental health? How are we taking care of our kids' mental health? The things that we say, the things that we do, the things that we don't listen to are traumatic in a lot of different ways. And it's not a you're a bad parent because you do X, Y, and Z. It's just stuff's going to happen. And sometimes, and here's the problem. This is the hardest thing with trauma. Trauma is not what happened. It's what you perceived it to be. Because again, remember, we're not working on chemistry that much anymore. We're working on mental piece. We're looking more of the ethereal. We're working on here is how things are. Here is how you should be. Here is how you think. Those are the type of things of, building the cycles up, breaking cycles down. Those are the type of things that we need to be really, really focused on as we come forward. Because the one thing that we've noticed is that regardless of where we are biochemically, because we have so much biochemical research, and you can go to the store and get, whether they're good or bad, you can get all sorts of supplementation. Every single food product we have has a list of nutrients and stuff on the back of it, all the nutritional information. So from a chemistry standpoint, it's just making the right decisions. We're all started on it. We're all, more or less, into that chemistry thing. Like, I talk to people all the time, and they might not know why, but they're like, high protein diets are the way to go. And I'm like, yeah, good job. we might need to spend a couple more hours going through exactly why. But yeah, high protein, you got it. High protein, low sugar, good job. That's knocked it out. But the same thing is, I talk to them like, what are you doing for your mental health? And people will just sit there and they go, what do you mean? I'm like, well, for your mental, what do you do for your mind? Like, to make sure your mind's in the right place and this sort of thing. And so many people just go, yeah, I don't think I'm really doing anything for that. Sometimes like people are like, well, I go to church and I go to Bible study, and that's fantastic. Like, if that's the thing that you learn to bring you peace, it brings me tremendous amounts of peace. That's one of my all-time favorite things to do for mental health is do those deep explorative discussions on religion and philosophy and things like that. That helps me. But if that's what you're doing, great. What else are you doing? Like, during the day, like during the normal day, when stress gets to you and everything's going crazy, and you're worried about your kids are starting back, and this person's sick, and this thing's going on, and we got all these things we got to do for football practice and for band practice and for whatever. Like, you have all these things going on. What are you doing to calm the noise down? Like, what are you doing to kind of help reorient the way that you look at things? Like, how are you, those little things that are irritating you, like, those sort of things. And then if you really want to get, really into the functional piece of it, is the unconscious or the subconscious portion of your mind, which is where NLP plays a lot. Jung talks about it, like, Freud talks about it, like, the part of your mind that is conscious, that you have normal thoughts in, is driven by the unconscious or the subconscious mind. Kind of like, this is the example I was using, about to lose a whole bunch of non-computer people, but it's kind of like Task Manager, right? Because you can look at your tray and be like, oh, okay, I got my internet up, so Google's running. I've got, these three, things running. And so when you open Task Manager, it's like, oh, there's 27 processes going on. Like, I was only aware of 4 of them. And that's kind of the subconscious mind. And sometimes you have to go in and open up the subconscious mind and be like, intact. And that's, like, again, that's kind of where a lot of your therapy, some of your NLP stuff, that's where that stuff lives. So that's the big piece, is what's going on inside your head that you're maybe not even aware of, because those are the things that drive who you are and what you do. This is where a lot of these childhood traumas, this is where, psychological traumas, divorces, PTSD, things like that, shift who you are and how you think and how you process information. Because if you've been traumatized, even if you're not consciously thinking, hey, the last time I did this, I got hurt. And so this time I'm going to put up walls, I'm going to put barriers to keep myself, to protect myself from getting hurt. Those are oftentimes unconscious or subconscious, depending on your terminology, decisions that you are making, you're just not aware of. And so a lot of times when you become aware of these decisions, you can stop them and you can create new habits and build new functional tools to get yourself moving in the right direction. But again, if you don't have somebody walk you through it, if you don't take the time to investigate and dig into these things, a lot of the things that a lot of the decisions we are making due to our unconscious decisions are going to continue to happen. And so that's a big piece. So when we start talking about how important the mental game is, it is wildly important. It's just not something that we're dealing with very much. Everybody agrees that mental health is super important. You should totally be doing more things for mental health. 100% needed. And we have all this research being like, hey, high stress causes all these problems, right? We have all this information on it. We're just not really doing anything about it. That's why we started rolling in the mental health piece to what we're doing. That's why I chose NLP is one of the pieces that we're working with, because it is, I think, the fastest, easiest way to get another look on maybe problems that you're having that you're unaware of, pointing out blind spots to you, that type of thing. It's kind of like if you're running a business and you're in the business and the whole you can't see the forest for the trees thing, and then someone comes in like a consultant and goes, hey, did you know that your KPIs over here are wrong? Hey, did you know that over here you're not even watching for these things, and you're bleeding money over here, or you're doing a lot of work here that's not returning anything on it? Because you can look at it from an outside vantage point. You have a different angle on it. Wildly, wildly helpful. And that's kind of what, a lot of different talk therapy is. NLP plays that a little bit. That's why it's super important to go and you sit down and you talk to somebody and you work with somebody and you go, hey, here's how life is rolling out for me. And like in psychotherapy or talk therapy, they'll ask you questions to help you kind of figure out on your own, like, hey, this thing that I've been doing isn't as productive or beneficial to me as I think it was. Maybe I can come up with a different way of doing these things that is going to be more beneficial to me and move myself in the right pathway. Because we all get stuck in these things. And here's the thing. If you're not working with somebody on them and you're just sitting there trying to work on it yourself, you can only possibly see it from one vantage point. And so getting somebody else that you can talk to, that you work with, helping you see it from a different vantage point might be all you need to solve these problems that you've been dealing with, whether you know it or not, for years. So a lot of this stuff is going to translate, the mental stuff is going to translate directly to physical health. So if you guys aren't doing anything for your mental health, find something. Like, go talk to a therapist, find some NLP guys, start reading really positive stuff, like get something to help push your mind in the direction you want it to go. If you just let modern society fill it with fear and anger and hatred and terribleness, that's what you're going to have. So think about your mental health. Think about what you're doing on a constant basis to improve your mood, improve your attitude, improve your outlook on life, to decrease, materials needs, things like that. Those are the things that are going to help more than anything else. People ask me like, well, what would be better if I could only afford to do the mental health for a month or take supplementation for a month? Like, which one would be better? And I tell people, I would go with mental health. And the reason is because there's a lot of supplementation that a lot of people need only because they're in a sympathetic state. If they could relax and calm down and shift back into that parasympathetic, half the supplements that we need to use to work on them, we wouldn't need. And so that's the biggest thing. If you can get the mind right, the body will always follow. It's not possible to have a healthy body with an unhealthy mind. So keep that in mind. If you guys have not been doing anything, if you guys need some help, hit us up, drop it in the comments and we'll help you guys kind of find places to go. But, there's things online, just Google, psychotherapist or talk therapy, counseling, near me, and find somebody and try to kind of figure out, what works best for you. But the mental piece is probably the biggest thing. It is the biggest thing that we're not addressing the way we should. So if you guys are looking for something to tweak your health or biohack the body, 100% work on that mental piece. It is the number one thing to do for all things in your body, and nobody's really doing anything about it. So check that out. Thanks for your time.